Chapter 1. An Occupied Childhood. On Isabella's 7th birthday, her father, Richard, brought home a pink music box. The metal base was delicately engraved with roses, and when the lid was opened, a fragment of the Moonlight Sonata would play. She had barely tucked the music box into her arms when her stepmother, Susan, emerged from the kitchen, hand in hand with 6-year-old Lily. "Bella, show it to your sister." Richard's voice was undeniably gentle. Isabella gripped the rim of the music box, her knuckles turning white. Lily was already on her tiptoes, her fingers almost touching the twirling ballerina. "This is my birthday present," she protested, softly, her voice like sandpapered steel wire. "You're the older sister. You should give into your younger sister." Susan nudged Lily closer. Lily was even talking about wanting a music box yesterday. The music box was finally placed in Lily's room. Late at night, Isabella heard the intermittent twang of music from next door, like tiny needles piercing her ears. She hid under the covers, counting the cracks in the ceiling, until the morning light filtered through the curtains. When she was 10, Richard converted the attic into a study. While sorting through old things, Isabella found a box of hardcover fairy tales. The gold-stamped letters on the spines gleaming in the dim light. She squatted on the floor, clutching the wind in the willows, and read for the entire afternoon until Lily came up the stairs. "These books are mine." Lily picked up the thickest volume, Grimm's Fairy Tales, and the corner of the book knocked against her knee. "Daddy said these are for me." "Daddy said my sister needs to be sensible." Lily piled the books into her arms. "My bookshelf happens to be empty." That night, Isabella drew a crooked music box in her diary and wrote "my" next to it. The ink from the pen soaked through the paper, creating a bluish-black cloud on the back. When applying for the high school art program, Isabella's sketches were recommended by her teacher. She tucked her sketch under her arm and prepared to submit her application to the academic affairs of FIS when she ran into Lily, carrying her sketchpad, in the hallway. "Mom said your sketches aren't as good as mine." Lily waved the application form in her hand, on which she had copied a self-portrait of Van Gogh. "Dad has already contacted the director." Isabella looked at the still life sketch she had spent 3 months working on in her portfolio. The pottery jar on the canvas had tiny cracks. Without saying a word, she turned and tucked the portfolio into the bottom tier of her closet, where she also laid the award certificate she had won in elementary school for her painting. On the eve of her 18th birthday, Isabella received an acceptance letter from a prestigious university for the archival management program. She folded the letter into a small square and hid it between the pages of the archival management handbook. At dinner, Richard tapped the rim of her bowl. "Lily wants to go to art school, but our family might not have enough money." He stirred his bowl of soup. "Your major. Why not hold off for a year?" "But the acceptance letter, Bella," Susan put down her chopsticks. "Your sister's future is more important. If she becomes a great painter, will she ever forget you?" The next day, Isabella enrolled at community college, majoring in library science. While sorting through old books, she found an old edition of Introduction to Archival Science. "To the Future Archivist" was written in pencil on the title page. The handwriting, soaked by rain, blurred into a blurry blue line. Chapter 2. A brief blink of light. At the age of 24, Isabella worked at the municipal archives. Her workstation was by the window, and the afternoon sun cast rectangular patches of light on the file boxes. That's when Ethan showed up, retrieving architectural blueprints from 10 years ago. Sorry, the 1998 blueprints are in Section B, Row 3. Isabella pointed deep into the warehouse, where the metal shelving nearly reached the ceiling. Ethan's smile left two faint lines at the corners of his eyes. He wore khaki overalls, his sneakers stained with cement. My name's Ethan, and I work at the architecture firm. He handed over his business card, the firm's name embossed in gold. After their third encounter in the corridors of the archives, Ethan invited her to a corner cafe. He talked about the community center he was designing, his hand tracing the curve of the roof on the table. Isabella listened, her spoon stirring her coffee suspended in midair. You seem quite interested in this, Ethan tilted his head to look at her. My dad used to like talking about architecture, too. She lowered her head, the foam on her coffee rippled. Their third date was in a city park. Ethan brought a sketchbook, his pencil scratching against the paper. Isabella sat on a bench, watching him sketch a fountain in the distance. The wind blew fallen leaves past her feet, and she suddenly felt the dusty corner of her heart being blown open. After 6 months of dating, Ethan proposed on a bridge over the river. The inside of the silver ring was engraved with a tiny E and I, as he knelt on one knee. The city skyline behind him lit up like a sea of stars. I know your family. Ethan took her hand, but we can have our own home. Isabella buried her face in his shoulder, inhaling the faint scent of turpentine on his clothes. She remembered the box of fairy tales she had found in the attic as a child, and suddenly felt that happiness might really come as the stories told. After getting engaged, they rented an apartment with a balcony. Isabella spent her weekends unpacking, placing the books she had accumulated over the years, one by one on the bookshelf. Ethan leaned against the doorframe, watching her place the book Introduction to Archival Science on the top shelf. What is this treasure? He reached for it. An old book I found in college. She took it down and flipped open the cover to show him. I used to want to study archival science at that university. Ethan's fingers brushed over the faint handwriting. We can go to night school together someday. The wind chimes on the balcony suddenly chimed. Isabella looked out and saw Lily standing downstairs, waving her phone. Her heart skipped a beat, like a stone dropped into a well. Chapter 3. Uninvited guests. Lily began to appear more frequently at their apartment. She always came around 3 p.m., when Isabella was at work and Ethan was on his lunch break. The first time they ran into her, Isabella had just returned from the archives and found Lily sitting on the sofa in the living room, wearing her new wool slippers. Ethan made me coffee. Lily swung the mug in her hand, the rim stained with milk foam. Ethan emerged from the kitchen, his apron stained with flour. Lily said she wanted to see our new home. My slippers. Isabella stared at Lily's feet. Oh. Sorry, Lily slowly slipped off her slippers. They look quite comfortable. The following weekend, Isabella was searching for a scarf in her closet when she realized her camel-colored cashmere scarf was missing. As she was rummaging through the drawers, Lily sent her a selfie of herself wearing the scarf, standing in front of the art museum, with the caption, "My new scarf is so warm-tilled, Ethan gave me that for my birthday." Isabella slammed her phone on the sofa. She might just be borrowing it. Ethan hugged her from behind, his chin resting on the top of her head. Lily's still young, so be patient. She's 24. She pulled away, her voice trembling. When will you understand? She didn't borrow it, she stole it. That night, they slept in separate rooms for the first time. Lying on the twin bed in the guest room, Isabella thought about the art spot she'd lost in high school. Moonlight filtered through the slits in the curtains, casting long, thin shadows on the floor. Like the cracks in the ceiling she'd counted as a child, Lily's intrusions were becoming increasingly blatant. She'd like every photo on Ethan's WeChat moments, send him bad mood messages late at night, and even call during their dates to say Susan had made dessert for her to pick up. "Ethan, can you go with me to buy a picture frame?" Lily's voice was sickeningly sweet on the phone. "The owner of that shop only accepts regular customers." Isabella looked at the movie ticket in Ethan's hand. The time on the ticket stub expired in half an hour. "Go ahead," she pressed popcorn into his hand. "Don't be late." After Ethan left, she sat alone in the theater. The couple on the screen kissed in the rain, and the audience around her chuckled softly. She bit into the popcorn and tasted a faint bitterness, like swallowing an unmelted pill.
Chapter 4. Showdown. The family gathering was scheduled for Richard's villa. When Isabella arrived, Lily was strolling in the garden with Ethan on her arm. She was wearing the burgundy dress Isabella had bought her for her birthday last year, and the hem of her skirt was wet with dew as it swept across the lawn. "Sister's here." Lily waved, her fingers gently rubbing circles on Ethan's arm. Isabella said nothing, walking straight into the kitchen. Susan was setting the table, her silver fork gleaming coldly in the light. Lily said Ethan helped her design her studio. Susan placed the roast chicken on the table. Young people just love to chat. Laughter suddenly erupted in the living room. Isabella looked over and saw Lily sitting on Ethan's lap, taking a selfie with her camera. Richard sat in an armchair nearby, a smile on his face. "Dad," Isabella said, walking over, her voice like a frozen lake. Richard looked up. "Bella's here. Come sit down." "That's my..." She stared at Ethan's hand, which was wrapped around Lily's waist. "Don't be so picky as a family." Richard held up his teacup. "Lily's just a little more lively." When dessert arrived, Lily suddenly stood up, her wineglass raised. "I have something to announce." She walked over to Ethan and slid her fingers between his. "Ethan and I are together." Spiels. The living room was so quiet you could hear ice melting. Isabella looked at Ethan, his Adam's apple moving, but he didn't say anything. "Sis," Lily turned to her, her eyes gleaming like poisoned glass. "Give me this too." All eyes were fixed on her, like countless needles piercing her skin. Isabella thought of the music box she had at 7, the fairy tale she had at 10, the acceptance letter she had received at 18. All those things that had been taken away had piled up in her heart, and now suddenly, they collapsed. "Okay," she heard her own voice say, as calmly as if she were discussing the weather. Lily was stunned for a moment, then smiled and threw herself into Ethan's arms. Richard breathed a sigh of relief, and Susan poured her a glass of red wine. "Bella is so considerate." Isabella picked up the glass, the wine drawing an arc along the sides. She looked at the garden outside the window. The moonlight cast the shadows of the trees on the grass, like a crumpled sketch.
Chapter 5. Silent Hunt. Isabella began to monitor Ethan's movements. While working at the archives, she would check the city's surveillance records. The first unusual sighting came on a Wednesday afternoon. Ethan, claiming to be supervising a construction site, was spotted on surveillance footage parked outside a boutique hotel in the West City. She kept quiet, preparing breakfast for Ethan as usual and placing an ironed shirt by the bed. Over omelets, Ethan mentioned the wedding date, saying Lily wanted an outdoor ceremony in the spring. "Have you chosen a venue?" Isabella handed him a glass of orange juice. "It's a suburban estate with a beautiful view." His eyes evaded. That weekend, Isabella drove to the boutique hotel, pretexting a trip to the library. She presented her archives ID at the front desk, saying she needed to retrieve the visitor records for the previous Wednesday. The receptionist hesitated, but relented before the official stamp on her documents. The records showed that Ethan had booked a room with his credit card, and the roommate's name was Emily. Isabella wrote the name down in her phone's notes. As she left the hotel, the glare of the sun made her squint. She began using her work to gather information in the architectural firm's project files. She discovered that Ethan's assistant, Sarah, often signed both of their names on overtime records. On social media, a model named Claire had posted a photo of herself and Ethan at an art exhibition. Captioned "Unforgettable Night." Isabella bought a telephoto lens and spent her weekends sitting in the cafe across from Ethan's apartment. She photographed him and Sarah embracing in the underground garage, Claire staying in his car late into the night, and him giving flowers to different women on different days. The photos piled up, and she organized them by date and stored them on an encrypted hard drive. Every time she transferred a file, she could hear her heartbeat. Like an old typewriter tapping on paper, Lily called, asking her to help choose the wedding invitations. "Ethan said you have good taste," Lily's voice came through the receiver, boasting a sweetness. "I think lace is nice." Isabella flipped through the files in front of her, her fingers running over the old city plan. "That's so kind, sister." Lily paused. "Ethan said he wants to buy me a new car. What do you think, red or white?" Isabella remembered that Ethan had just put a down payment on their apartment a few days ago. Her grip on the phone tightened. "Red, it's eye-catching." After hanging up, she opened the folder on her computer. The latest photo showed Ethan and a strange woman coming out of a restaurant. He opened the car door for her, the gesture so intimate, as if they had been rehearsed countless times. Chapter 6. Wedding Planning. Lily asked Isabella to be her bridesmaid. "It'll show our sisterly love," she said as she tried on her wedding dress. The white satin skirt spread out on the floor like a giant flower. Isabella looked in the mirror. She was wearing a lavender bridesmaid dress. The lace at the neckline, a little scratchy. "I still have work." "Take some time off," Lily said, her skirt sweeping past her ankles. "Dad's already spoken to your curator." She began to get involved in the wedding planning. When she and Lily went to order the cake, she watched the clerk place the L&L candy sign on the top layer and suddenly remembered that she and Ethan had joked about putting a small file box on the cake. 7 layers, each with a different flavor. Lily poked at the sample, and a swan-shaped candy figure on top. When it came time to choose the band, Lily insisted on hiring the hottest jazz band downtown. "Ethan said he wanted the best for me." She scrolled through the videos on her phone, her fingers swiping across the screen. Isabella sat on the sofa next to her, watching Ethan swipe his card to pay the deposit. In his wallet was a photo of them taken at the national park last year. Her eyes narrowed in a smile. A week before the wedding, they rehearsed at the manor. Isabella stood in the maid of honor's chair, watching Lily and Ethan practice exchanging rings. As the minister recited the vows, the wind blew Lily's veil across Ethan's face. "You don't look happy," after the rehearsal. Ethan approached, holding 2 bottles of mineral water. "No," she took the water, "the bottle's cold. I wish you happiness." Ethan opened his mouth to say something, but was interrupted by Lily, who ran over. "Ethan, let's go take some pictures." Lily grabbed his hand and ran toward the garden, her skirt scratching the grass. Isabella stood there, watching their backs. The setting sun painted the sky orange, and birds chirped in the distant woods. She touched the USB drive in her pocket, the metal casing warm against her palm. Chapter 7. A special gift on the wedding day. Isabella woke early. She rummaged through her closet and chose a black dress with a pearl brooch pinned to her collar, a relic from her mother. Before leaving, she placed the gift box containing the photos in the hallway. She had bought the box yesterday, a deep red velvet with the gold pattern embossed on it. She checked it to make sure the tape was secure. Many guests had already arrived at the manor. Susan, in her champagne-colored gown, was directing the waiters to arrange the flowers. Richard stood at the door to greet the guests. When he saw Isabella, a rare smile crossed his face. "It's nice of you to come," he patted her shoulder. Isabella walked into the banquet hall without saying a word. The band tuned their instruments on the stage, the violins twanging like stretched strings. She found a seat in the corner and watched the guests exchange pleasantries, their glasses clinking with the crisp sound of each other. The lights dimmed as the ceremony began. Isabella watched Lily approach, arm in arm with Richard, the train of her wedding dress trailing along the red carpet like a white snake. Ethan stood at the front of the stage, a formulaic smile on his face. The minister's voice echoed through the hall, asking if anyone had any objections to the wedding. Isabella picked up her glass and took a sip of the warm water. It was a bit cold, sliding down her throat like swallowing a piece of ice. After the rings were exchanged, the host announced the gift-giving session. Lily's friends took the stage one by one, presenting beautifully wrapped gift boxes. When Isabella's turn came, everyone's attention was on her. She picked up the gift box and walked up to the stage, her high heels clicking rhythmically against the floor. Lily smiled and held out her hand, her nails painted the same red as her lipstick. "Congratulations on your wedding," Isabella said, her voice soft but clear as she handed the gift box over. Lily took the box and opened it in front of everyone. Red velvet fell to the floor, revealing a photo album. She flipped it open, her smile suddenly faltering. The first photo showed Ethan and Sarah hugging in the garage. The second was him and Claire kissing in the restaurant. And the third was him and Emily leaving the hotel. The photos scattered one by one, like leaves blown by the wind. The guests gasped, and some pulled out their phones to take pictures. Lily screamed, threw the album to the floor, and lunged at Ethan. "You lied to me. You liar." Ethan tried to grab her hand, but she shook him off. "It's not what you think." His voice was faint amid the clamor. Richard rushed onto the stage, trying to pull Lily away, but she pushed him, causing him to stumble. Susan slumped in her chair, her flowers falling to the floor. The band had stopped playing at some point, leaving only the sounds of arguing and the click of camera shutters in the hall. Isabella stood on the stage, observing the chaos. She suddenly remembered the music box she had when she was 7. The Moonlight Sonata seemed to ring in her ears. Intermittent but remarkably clear. Chapter 8. There ends the day after the wedding farce. Isabella received a call from Richard. His voice was hoarse, as if he hadn't slept all night. "Come home." He hung up without waiting for her reply. Isabella stared at the phone screen for half a minute, pinning the pearl brooch back to her collar. The subway churned through the tunnel, and the darkness outside the window was as thick as ink. She remembered Richard taking her to the amusement park when she was a child, lifting her on his shoulders to watch the fireworks. His laughter back then was brighter than the fireworks. The door to the villa was unlocked. Isabella pushed it open and saw the living room sofa piled with wrinkled dresses. Susan sat on the carpet, wiping a broken vase with a tissue, the shards gleaming coldly in the morning light. "Are you satisfied?" Susan's voice scraped like rusty iron across glass. "Lily's been locked in her room all day. Are you going to destroy her?" Isabella said nothing, taking off her coat and draping it over the back of a chair. The closet door was open, and she saw her high school drawing award, crumpled and tucked into a corner trash can. Richard emerged from the study, a bruise under his eye as if he'd been punched. "Sit down and talk." He gestured to the sofa across from her, an empty wine glass clutched in his hand. "I don't have much to discuss." Isabella leaned against the doorframe. "You sent me here. Those photos." Richard's Adam's apple twitched. "You knew all along?" "From the day we got engaged." She thought of the national park photo in Ethan's wallet, where she grinned like a fool. He has the numbers of 7 different women saved in his phone, all labeled work partner. Susan suddenly screamed, "Then why didn't you tell me earlier?" "You did it on purpose. You just can't stand to see Lily doing well." "I did." Isabella's voice was soft, but it struck like a hammer on iron. 10 years ago, I told Lily I stole my fairy tales, and you called me petty. 3 years ago, I told her she took the scarf Ethan gave me, and you called me petty. Last week, I reminded Ethan not to work overtime alone with his assistant, and he called me paranoid. She walked to the center of the living room and pointed at an empty spot on the wall. "My elementary school painting award used to hang there, but Lily said it looked ugly, so you made her take it down and throw it away. She hid my acceptance letter in the attic, and you said, my sister's future is more important. Now she's stolen my fiancé, and what else do you want from me?" Richard dug his fingers into the sofa armrest, his knuckles turning white. I thought if I let you give in to her more, this family would just pretend to be harmonious." Isabella laughed, her voice icy. "You never asked me if I wanted the music box, if I was willing to give her the books, or if I wanted to go to college. You only cared about making me behave, because behaved children are easier to get rid of." Footsteps sounded on the stairs. Lily was in her pajamas, her hair a mess, her eyes red and swollen like walnuts. She clutched a pair of scissors and rushed straight at Isabella. "I'm going to kill you!" Lily's scream pierced the air, the cold flash of the scissors flashing before her eyes. Isabella dodged to the side, and Lily missed, falling to the carpet. The scissors slid to Ethan's feet. He had been standing in the doorway at some point, cake stains still on his suit. "How dare you come here?" Lily scrambled to her feet, digging her nails into Ethan's arm. "Didn't you say you only loved me? Who were those women?" Ethan pried her hand away and took 2 steps back. "We're over, Lily." "Over?" Lily suddenly laughed, tears streaming down her face. "You spent $200,000 on my dad's sports car, and it's not even transferred yet." Richard stood up abruptly, his chair legs scraping against the floor. "You used my money to buy him a car?" The living room descended into chaos again. Richard chased Ethan and beat him. Susan hugged Lily and cried. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting a pale white on the floor. Isabella quietly closed the door, shutting out the arguing. She walked to the garage and saw the second-hand bicycle she'd ridden in college still parked in the corner. A half copy of Introduction to Archival Science tucked into the basket. 3 months later, Isabella found a new job at an archive in another city. She rented an attic apartment and placed the old book on the top shelf. Her colleague, Mark, a balding old man, always brought her blueberry pie during lunch break. "You look beautiful when you smile," Mark said, pushing the last piece of pie toward her. "You should smile more often." Isabella took a bite of the pie, the tart and sweet blueberry aroma spreading across her tongue. She remembered the email she'd received the previous week, in which Richard said Lily had gone to Europe and Susan had moved south. Their villa, listed on a real estate website, showed a bare living room in the photo, with a pale white mark on the wall where the awards had once hung. On Halloween, Isabella was sorting through things in the attic when she found a dusty cardboard box. She opened it and found the hardcover fairy tales, the gold-stamped letters on the spine still gleaming. She pulled out a copy of The Wind in the Willows and found a yellowed sticky note on the flyleaf. Richard's handwriting read, "I'm sorry Dad didn't see your tears back then." Outside the window came the sound of children laughing. Isabella tucked the sticky note into her book and walked out to the balcony. The city night sky was dotted with stars. Like a handful of diamonds, she took a deep breath, inhaling the faint fragrance of osmanthus flowers. Suddenly, she felt as if something was sprouting in that desolate place in her heart. Ethan was later fired from his architectural firm for fraud. He reportedly opened a small renovation business on the outskirts of town, often facing complaints from clients. Lily worked part-time at an art gallery abroad and no longer posted those glamorous photos on social media. Richard emailed Isabella once a month, mostly about the weather and the stock market, never mentioning the events of the past. Occasionally, Isabella would go to the city park on weekends, sitting on the bench where Ethan had once painted, reading Introduction to Archival Science. The wind blew fallen leaves past her feet, and she thought of the music box she had played at age 7. Suddenly, she realized she couldn't remember the melody of the Moonlight Sonata. That afternoon, Mark came over with 2 university night school application forms, his pen gleaming in the sunlight. I checked. There's still space for the archives management major. He scratched his bald head. Want to go together? Isabella took the application form and hesitated for a second as her pen touched the name field. The wind rippled her hair, and the fountain in the distance shimmered like golden light. She lowered her head and wrote her name on the paper, her handwriting clear and firm.